Welcome to the Grow Strong Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Meredith Bell, and I interview business leaders who are committed to their own growth and the development of everyone on their team. If you enjoy my podcast, be sure to subscribe and rate it on your favorite podcast platform. Welcome back to another episode of the Grow Strong Leaders podcast. Today, I am so excited to welcome this particular person as my guest because I had the opportunity to interview him for another podcast where I am a co-host. And it was such a fantastic conversation, and the ideas that were brought up were so relevant to this podcast that I was determined he would come back. And sure enough, here he is. Townsend Wardlaw, welcome to my show.
It's great to be back and on a new show. So I'm back and I'm not back, right?
Yes. Well, a lot of my audience does not listen to the other podcast, The Ultimate Coach. So this will be their first introduction to you. And I
Perfect.
know that based on what we've discussed before, is going to be just such a valuable conversation for them. Let me tell them a little bit about you before we jump in. For many years, Townsend was a consultant to founders of companies and entrepreneurs. And then in 2018, he moved to coaching as his primary focus. And today he serves as a coach to a select group of founders and their leadership teams. Townsend also serves as the trusted advisor to the world's top coaches. He leads the Coaches Operating System, a community that serves coaches on their journey to master the business of coaching. So, Townsend, I think it would be interesting if we started. There's so many places we could start, but because of the work you do today and what we're going to be diving into, let's give some context for our listeners in your journey. Briefly tell us what led you to the work you're doing today.
Yeah, thank you. So the very condensed version is that I came into the corporate world sort of late. I had a prolonged, I wouldn't say adolescence, but young adulthood, and traveled and did all sorts of fun. And 27 decided to actually get a real job. So I went out and got a job in sales and had a somewhat meteoric rise in the corporate world. In the span of about 6 years, I had been working in bike shops and rolling burritos at night to I was a VP at a Fortune 500 company. So I was very much living the dream of a career success and in that whole corporate world and the money and the leased cars and the vacations and all that fun stuff. But I was really miserable. I really hated that environment and just sort of the inauthenticity of the corporate world. And I said, I'm going to go do my own thing. And I didn't really know what it was or what that would be, but I quit this very high paying job and launched a company. And over the course of 7 years, figured out what we were going to be doing, which was essentially sales training, consulting, outsourced sales functions, etc. We actually pioneered an industry, which is a story for another day, and got the company to about 3 million in revenue and 80 employees. And then over the course of about 18 months, I like to say I exited, but I didn't exit with great fanfare and a lot of revenue. I exited with a bankruptcy and a divorce and my health shot, and everything that I built came crashing down. On the other side of that, I had to figure out how to make some money, and I had lots of skills when it came to building businesses and sales and revenue. So I hung up my shingle as a consultant, and for the next roughly, oh gosh, what would there be, decade, served founders very much like I had been, who were really struggling to get their companies to the point where the companies could operate without them. And I served these founders typically on the journey from somewhere in the 2 or 3 million in revenue range to somewhere in the 8 to 10 million revenue range. That's a really fun part of the journey and also a really tough part of the journey for founders, because you can build a business to a couple million on the sheer force of will and I'll do everything and it's all up to me. But after that, it becomes increasingly more and more difficult, not to mention the fact that your company has no value. Nobody's going to pay you money to buy your company if your company's you. They'll just say you keep running it. So the dream for founders was to get themselves out of the day-to-day, build a real company that was sellable, grow the revenue to 8 or 10 million and find somebody who would offer them anywhere from a 5 to 7x multiple on revenue, a strategic valuation, and they could walk away with between 50 and $100 million for their efforts, which is a really great return. So I love that space. Worked with several hundred, 200 or 300. I can't even remember how many founders during that time. Took more than 3 dozen of my clients through to exit and these big liquidity events, which on one hand sounds really impressive, but one of the things that really gnawed at me was out of, let's just say, 300 companies, 3 dozen is a really poor track record when you think about it. Now, most folks would say, yeah, well, that's just how it goes. Most companies aren't successful. During that time, as a consultant, I was obsessed with getting more and more explicit and more refined on the how do you do these things? How do you build a sales organization? How do you get the CEO out of sales? How do you implement sales technology? All the how-tos. And I had a YouTube channel. Some of my views had millions or some of my videos had millions of views. I had content, I had courses, I had funnels, I had all this stuff, not because I was trying to make money offline, because I was really passionate about helping these founders solve these problems, with better how-tos. And I was really frustrated because fundamentally, no matter what you would do, what I would do to teach founders and their companies to do the right things in the right order, what have you, a lot of it just didn't happen. It didn't work. The change didn't stick. Now, I might have just kept trying that for the rest of my life, but in 2018, through a series of very fascinating coincidences, I was introduced to a book called the Prosperous Coach by Rich Litvin and Steve Chandler. My wife actually introduced me to the book, and I'd resisted anything to do with it for about 6 months because I was certain that I was already a coach and I was certainly very prosperous. I had a very successful, it was just me doing almost $1 million a year as a consultant. And I remember getting to hear some audio of this book, and literally we were on a drive on the East Coast. We were doing a little road trip, my wife Louisa and I decided right then and there, I'm going to hire this Rich Litvin guy as my coach. I'd never had a real big boy coach, as I would say, right? I'd worked with coaches and been through Landmark and had these little tastes and tidbits. And my first session with Rich, he was the first human that I wrote a very big check to coach with. And what I like to share is that the first session with him was worth the $120,000 that I spent with him. And in that session, he asked me a question. The question was, and he has this beautiful, very elegant British accent. He says, which of your clients inspire you? I'm doing a poor job of the accent, of course. And very arrogantly, I said, none of them. I inspire them. And his response after a few seconds was, well, isn't that a shame? And it hit me like a lightning bolt. Wait a minute. What kind of life is that? Right? I'm going to spend the rest of my life teaching, telling, explaining, pontificating about what people need to do. And I'm always going to be the smartest, most interesting guy in the room. Like, what would a world look like if my clients inspired me instead of it was my job to inspire them? I mean, literally took everything in my world and blew it apart. In that moment, I said, well, I'm done consulting because I can never be around people more inspiring than me if I'm the one who's paid to teach them what to do.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna do this coaching thing. I wasn't even sure exactly what it was or how it worked. But I remember going to my calendar, and I'm very intentional about how I block my calendar, and I've got spaces in my calendar for the consulting that work that I'll do or consulting clients placeholders, and I deleted them all and I inserted coaching spots. I didn't know how to coach, what to coach about, any of this stuff, but I'm like, I'm just going to put it in my calendar. We'll see if I can create some clients around that. That was 2018. That really began my journey into becoming a coach. And I'll unpack what I think a coach is in a minute. But actually, well, let me do that right now. So for me, it's a very simple distinction. A consultant is the expert. Consultant has the process, the methodology, the framework, the tools, the technology. I'm going to tell you what you need to do to get the results that you want. You follow me, do the instructions, you'll get it. I'm the expert. Well, a coach is the opposite. A coach starts with the premise that the expert's sitting across the table. The expert is the one whose business this is, and they can create anything to solve the problems, but only the problems that they see. They can create anything to access opportunities, but only the opportunities that they see. So, at its most pure or pristine, a coach is really a mirror in which the client can look into to see what they can't otherwise see. And once they see it, well, they know what to do with it. Rich Litvin never told me, well, here's what you do to become a coach. He helped me look in the mirror and see that, this is not the life I wanted was, being the expert the rest of my life. I figured out the rest. He helped me see an incredible blind spot. Over the next few years, I worked with Michael Neal, had the opportunity to work with him. He was incredible. Worked with Steve Hardison for 2.5 incredible years, and gradually uh, converted my practice from consulting, advice giving, being the expert to coaching. And it started with me sneaking in coaching, right? I would get in the door through my expertise around sales and process, and then I would kind of work my way into the coaching side of things. And as it stands today, what I do is coach. I have an incredible life, an incredible practice. I'm very, very blessed. I have a handful of clients that I work with where I coach the founder of the company. I coach their leadership team, and I'm really embedded with the company. So I only have 5 clients, and I serve the entire company, and I serve the company not just in the matter of business, but the people in that company. And we go and we build and we grow, and then we sell the companies just like we used to do, but we do it with a tool called coaching. And what I refer to this as is not just any kind of coaching, because there's a lot of coaches, and a lot of times coaches are in the advice business. I don't really call that coaching, but I refer to this as coaching at the level of consciousness, literally working with the consciousness of the founder, the leadership team,
Mm.
all the people, the company to effect the transformation that imbues value into that organization that causes it to grow. And speaking as one who had a very successful track record, growing and helping companies get sold from consulting, what I can say unequivocally is coaching is a far more powerful tool set. It works faster, it creates more lasting change, it transforms the individuals from the inside out, not just the systems and processes that they work in.
Mm. That's a great summary. I love that. And of course, I want to explore with you why that's the case. What is it that's happening? I love that phrase, coaching at the level of consciousness.
Yeah.
So, what does that look like? Let's get
Mhm.
specific about, because consciousness, first of all, we want to define that from your perspective.
Yeah.
And also, what does it look like as you're working with a client so that we aren't in the realm of the concept, but we get into the nitty
Yeah.
gritty of
Yep.
what happens?
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Well, and I know we talked about this on the other podcast, but I think it bears repeating. When I talk to people about consciousness and explain it, I want to make it as tangible as possible because people automatically think you're talking some woo-woo stuff. Um, Michael Neal was the one that I heard this analogy from, but he talked about consciousness as a concept. Like, think of a glass elevator. Think of, we're on this planet, we're in this material world, and there's this elevator, but it's completely glass, so you can see out, and it's infinite. It goes up as past where you can see. And wherever you are at the height in the elevator, you have a seeing, an awareness of the world. So at the ground floor of the elevator, right, the world occurs a certain way. You see certain things, and probably looks busy and frustrating, and people are bumping into each other. There's all this stuff. You go up to the mezzanine. Well, it's a little different view. It's a little quieter. Well, the higher up you go in the elevator, fundamentally you're looking at the same world, but from an entirely different vantage point. And because you're looking at the world, your awareness of the world has changed. Your thoughts about the world change, and your ideas about what might be done or what needs to happen. And a simple example of this is something that at the ground level might seem to be an insurmountable obstacle. Well, higher up there, you see, well, actually, you can go down here and there's a little, break in the mountain. You can just walk right around it. It's not a problem. But you would never know that down here. So you're getting out your drills and your shovels and all these power tools and dynamite, try to blast through the rock, right? Because that's what occurs to do from where you can see, versus from a different level. You go, actually, let's just walk 100 yards down there, and this thing's done. And working at the level of consciousness is really about helping people get access to different floors, right? Seeing what
Mm.
floor they experience the world from, and working with them. And that's a metaphor. We'll get into it more specifically. Um, Getting into different levels of the elevator, access to different heights to look out upon the world.
Mm. That's such a fabulous visual because we can all imagine the higher up you go,
Mhm.
the more you can see.
Yeah.
And that changes
Yeah.
your perspective on
Yep.
what's possible. I think that's
Yeah.
the key, right?
Yep.
We
Yeah.
get stuck.
Yep. There's another way I'll talk about consciousness, right? Because that's a real fun, example in the glass elevator. But well, how does that apply in terms of real life, like in terms of exactly, like all the stuff at whatever level we're at? Well, another way I talk about it is consciousness is an awareness of the occurring of life from our particular vantage point or perspective. Even at the same, we'll call it the same height, there are angles from which we see things, right? If you just kind of imagine walking around the physical world, you're walking along and you can't see behind a building, but when you walk around it, well, you can see there. So just simply changing your physical perspective. Well, consider how we create the world. And I don't just mean out here in the physical space, but I mean literally up here. And I'll give you a very simple example. Most of the founders that I work with, the successful ones, when you have a conversation with them and you say, so what's life look like? Tell me what you see. Tell me about your day. You just get people talking about how life occurs for them. As you listen, not just to their thoughts about the world and what's going on and who's doing what to whom, you can attune yourself to almost a meta thinking, a set of meta thoughts about how the world is. And in my experience with founders, and I've talked to a lot of them, one of the themes that occurs, it's not all founders, but a theme that occurs is the idea, well, I can have what I want if I'm willing to work hard, right? Now, I need to work hard to get what I want. Now, as a conclusion, after a series of tasks or events, that's one thing. But now imagine that's not the conclusion, that's the starting point. You've had a lifetime of experiences that taught you that you get what you want when you're willing to work hard. And you have experience that have taught you when you don't work hard, you don't get what you want. So it goes from being evidence and data from what has happened to becoming a truth about what will happen. So the more successful I have been with that meta thought, the more that thought creates the future. So as I walk into a business situation or a venture, what have you, I don't end with the idea I had to work hard. I start with the idea I'm going to have to work hard if I want to get what I want.
Mm.
So that idea, that meta thought begins to create all the other thoughts about what's even possible. And I'll make this very, very, very tangible. I worked with a founder. This was 2 years ago. Actually, this was the end of 2023. We were just going into 2024, and we needed to go out and raise some money. And people may or may not know this who are watching, but 2024 was a really tough year to raise capital. All the venture firms and everybody kind of were holding their money really close, waiting until the election. We want to see what's going on. Like nobody was giving money away. So at the end of 23, as we were sort of planning and strategizing and putting together our plan for what are we going to do to raise the money in 2024, the CEO slash founder I was working with in our conversations, what I heard in all of the language and the describing and the planning, right there, we're creating strategy. Well, what's creating strategy? Well, what I saw was what was creating strategy was his idea, this is going to be hard, right? It wasn't the conclusion, it was the starting point. And that's not surprising. I see this all the time, right? CEOs usually get what they want by working hard. So, what he was in the process of doing was building a plan, a strategy that he would then take actions on. But that entire plan was built on the truth this is going to be hard. So, when you reviewed the plan, there was nothing in the plan that looked easy. Well, why would there be? Why would I put something in a plan that was easy if I start with the idea it's got to be hard? That wouldn't make the cut. So we had a little conversation about that. We said, well, let's slow that down. Certainly this could be hard. Let's play a game called, and it was more than just this one sentence, but this is the idea. What if this were easy? What if this entire process were actually easy and fun? What if we started with the idea it is easy and fun. Not it will
Mm,
be, it is. So this is I'll go to another visual. Instead of thinking up or down, here is reality. This is the stuff we can all agree is there. We're on a Zoom call. It's Thursday today that we're recording this. Right. We all agree on this. Right. This is the objective reality. Well, some of it's objective reality, and some of it is produced from looking over here on a little platform called I Get What I Want if I work hard. So when we think of I get what I want if I can work hard as a position, right? Just like, Grand Canyon, you can look from the north or you look from it's still the Grand Canyon, but you're looking from a different spot. So I'm looking at the situation from the idea, the truth, I'll need to work hard. Well, what I like to say is this is easy is not the truth, right? Sometimes people often get confused. They say, well, that's just the power of positive thinking, and that's horseshit. I said, no, I'm not trying to convince you it will be easy. I don't know if it will be or not. What I know is I need to work hard is simply one option to look at the situation. What if we walk over here to a little platform called This Will Be Easy and Fun? What will we see? And coming from that place, standing and looking from that position, you see something different. Your brain starts to produce other ideas about what it will be and what actions you will need to take. So, this is how magical this is. We played this little game, and he had literally built, a plan, a slide deck, all these things from this is going to be hard. And it was, a 12 or 18 month timeline. It was just, I mean, just looking at the plan was exhausting. We played a game and we had to sit with this a little bit and we had to constantly come back to no, we're not trying to say it is. We're just creating the possibility that it might be. If it was, let's pretend we're in the future looking back and holy crap, that was easy. What could have happened? And as soon as you go, well, this was easy and fun, what would have made it so? Ideas start to pop up. And usually the ideas start out as ridiculous. Well, it will be easy and fun if somebody calls us out of the blue and just offers us the money and we didn't even know they existed. Right? That's a possibility. That's not like it could never happen, but that possibility cannot be considered and it won't go in the plan from it's going to be hard. So standing over here and spending some time, and then I sent him home and I said, well, tonight before you go to bed, make sure you, right, put in your mind this is going to be easy and fun and I'll know how in the morning. Call me in the morning. He goes, oh, I know what we're going to do. We're going to call this guy. It's going to take care of it. It's going to be fun to be done in 6 months. Like he knew what to do. There was something there that was already in his brain. We didn't invent anything, but from this is going to be hard, the idea, call this guy, enroll him in this thing, and whatever it was, that gets filtered out. That gets disqualified from the plan. But as soon as you shift your perspective, the idea pops up. Like it was there the whole time.
mhm.
That is a very tangible, in my view, scenario of shifting consciousness. And it's not even elevating your consciousness like in the scale of the elevator. It's simply looking from a different spot, right? So I'll pause because I get excited about this, as you
Well,
know.
I can tell you just this week that same thing happened to me where I took a different perspective and in one day I had three calls that all came together to make something I thought might be challenging easy and fast.
Yeah,
And so I totally get what you're saying. And I love this example you just gave because it's not demanding anything, it's simply inviting someone to explore possibilities.
yep,
What if we looked at it with this question and then
yeah,
you imagine
yep,
the outcome and then looking back what would have happened? I just think that's brilliant, and I think
yeah,
everybody who is listening, if you'll think of one situation where you have felt, oh, this is so hard, and how could you follow what Townsend just described and possibly see it from a different perspective? The
yeah,
answers are there, aren't they? That's what
yeah,
you love
yeah.
about coaching. The
I
answers are
love it.
already
Yeah.
there.
Well, and they come up with them. I don't have to do any work, right? There's there's one thing that I always talk about when I'm sharing this, and it might get a list, it might get a little esoteric, it might not. The idea is there is objective reality. There is stuff, right? This is a water bottle. I'm not projecting this. I'm not man. This is just it's just what it is. But the percentage of how life occurs for us that is the objective part is actually very small. So from where I am standing and looking, I am actually not perceiving anything different, right? My perception of objective reality, unless I've got a mental illness, should be pretty much the same as yours. The question is, can I discern that which I am receiving and that which I'm projecting and separate the two?
Talk more
Because,
about that. Yeah.
well, we were going to go out and raise money. There were people we were going to talk to. There were certain parameters of the deal. Like there was some basic objective stuff. This is going to be hard doesn't exist out here. It only exists in my mind. So I can't see this is going to be hard out there. I have to put it onto it and
Hmm.
create how it will be, right? Think how many times people say, well, that's stressful. Really? There's inherent stress in the world? Find me something that's stressful. Well, traffic is stressful. Really? Cool. Well, then go out in traffic. Bring me, I don't know, a pound and a half of stress. Bring me 2.5 cups of stress. Because, if it's out there, you should be able to grab it and collect it. You can't. It is stressful is a thought, right? Now, how do I know this? How can I prove it? Very simple. Have you ever driven in another country? I've driven in countries all over the world. I've driven in Bolivia. Driving in Bolivia makes driving in LA, in the craziest traffic, seem like you're on the beach relaxing with a Mai Tai. And driving with Bolivians are like, they might as well be taking a nap. They're so calm in what to me is absolute insanity. So that's pretty clear evidence that stress is not in traffic, it is in the driver in the traffic projecting it onto the traffic. And we can get into the reasons, it doesn't really matter. The point is, there's stuff that is out there and there's stuff that is in here. The stuff out there I perceive, the stuff in here I project. Now, why is that good news? Well, to me, it's good news because if it's out there, there's not much I can do with it, right? If traffic is stressful, if people are jerks, blah, blah, then, well, I got to avoid people, stay out of traffic. I gotta deal with it. I have no power. But if stress is in here and I am creating, generating, and projecting it, well, that suggests there's a possibility I could stop doing that. So I could immediately and permanently transform my experience of life without having to alter anything other than how I use, my
You know,
consciousness creator.
I just love that, Townsend. And I want to bring it home for leaders who are listening who may have, let's say, someone on their team or someone in their organization that they just consistently have friction with.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and I'm sure you run into this all the time with the
Oh yeah.
founders you work with. So
Yep.
let's take this idea of, this projection and talk about how can, and not how can, what can happen differently for someone if
Yeah.
they take this inside out approach that you're talking
Yep.
about
Yep.
when it comes to an individual at home or at work that they're
Yeah.
just finding themselves at odds with.
Yeah. I'm excited to talk about this. But before I do, let me share this. When I talk about creating life from a different consciousness, elevator, other side, what have you, what I am not doing is saying that anybody's level of consciousness or perspective is wrong. That's really, really important because a lot of times I'll suggest we look from a different angle and there's an unwillingness to do so because I think there's a belief that somehow I'm thinking, well, that's the wrong way to look at it, right? There's nothing wrong, immoral, evil, or shameful about creating from I need to work hard. And it works. right? It is an effective way to look at the world because it puts us in action. And when we take those actions, we get results. And if those results are positive, what we've learned is, yeah, that's how you got to look at things so they work. So there's no wrong way of looking at the world. There's just the way we're looking. And almost always we can go back in time and get a pretty good sense of uh, how we came to seeing the world that way, right? Our mothers, our fathers, our teachers, our preachers, right? They taught us how the world is, how the world works. They taught us about money, right? I grew up in a house where money was scary. Money was something that was hard to get, right? My reality for most of my life was it's hard to make money. Well, so I did things and worked really hard to make money. And then one day I asked the question, well, what if I created it was easy to make money? Well, I had different ideas and I went and made money and the outcome was almost the same, except it was a lot easier because I found the easy things. So this is not a you're doing it wrong or you're thinking about it wrong. You're doing what has worked till this point, and you're under no obligation to change it. And it's not like I got a better way. I got a different way, which might produce different outcomes, might produce a different experience. And if that's interesting to somebody, they should play with it. If not, keep doing it. So let's look at a founder or an entrepreneur who's built a company. They've gotten enough traction and success that they know there's something here. They have a going concern, as we like to say. And now they start to bring in other people to assist them in growing these things, right? Now, these other people are here and they do their best job to find the right people and the good people and what have you. And what they find again and again is these people are disappointing them. These people aren't doing the job right or they're not doing it right. And they go through the whole phase of is it me? Is it the training? Like all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, it's like it's not working out. All that matters is it's not working out. Well, not crazy to think, well, I keep hiring the wrong people. Let me try to hire the right people. Right. And I'll get better at hiring. And that's a very traditional a consultant will help you with the hiring process. A consultant will help you with your interview skills and all that stuff. Well, one of the things I know about founders is that a meta thought, a core uh, place they look at the world from is this idea that it's up to me, right? There's not a founder that starts a business without some level of, I can do this. I can do this myself. I'll make this work, right? There's a resiliency, there's a resourcefulness, there's an independence, right? You simply can't go out on your own without some level of I can do this.
Hmm.
I can make this. It's up to me, right? Well, what if it's up to me as the company has grown, gets stronger, right? Because that idea has already proven, yes, I did it, right? Remember, I built a company at almost 3 million and it collapsed. Well, why did it collapse? I got it to a million through sheer force of will, right? It's up to me. Nobody's coming. I got to do this, right? So I was in fingers and everything. Well, and as the company grew and I hired a management team and a leadership team and other people and kept getting frustrated because they weren't doing the job, well, I kept getting pulled back into the business, right? I thought they could help me, but no, once again, it's up to me. Well, what if the game was rigged from the beginning? What if the entire hiring process, the training, all the things that we did were actually created from a founder who started with, it's up to me. I wonder what kind of hiring decisions they would make. Would they really make hiring decisions to identify people that could take things off their plate and free up their time and make them irrelevant? Well, I can tell you from my personal experience, that's not what I did. Unconsciously, subconsciously, at the level of consciousness, I created an entire company built on one very powerful idea. It's up to me. So everybody needed me. There I was in my little office in the corner, and there was always a line of people waiting to talk to me. And right, I wanted to be helpful, etc. But at some point, I'm like, why can't anybody do anything for themselves? Why do they? It never occurred to me that I had set it up, right? Unknowingly. Because what I really wanted was to validate what was the truth, which is it's all on me. It'll never be up to anybody else. And what I can tell you is the dozens and dozens and dozens of founders who I've worked with, hundreds, who have seen, oh, wait a minute, I did hire that person from it's up to me, or nobody's as good as me, or I need to be involved. Yeah, you built the systems, you built the process, you created the reporting that way. And eventually they failed, or you fired them, or they quit, and you were right back to it's up to me, which is actually where you started in the first place. So that's to me a very powerful example of about how consciousness, our awareness, how the world occurs for us, literally creates everything else. And it creates powerfully, but it also has some potential downsides, some challenges.
So as it relates to relationships, where you might have that person that you have developed this thought around. The meta thought, it could be, I can't depend on them, or why are they so different from me, or why don't they see things my way? And this whole thing of making someone else wrong
Mhm.
and me being right.
Yeah.
Um, what's the different perspective or shift that would be helpful in in not projecting myself onto them and my thoughts onto them?
Well, I love the way how you asked that question. I don't know that there's any escaping this very, very deeply baked in need to be right. I don't know that we can truly escape it. I think we can create freedom with it from an awareness to it, right? I like being right. Being right makes me feel good. If I'm honest, making other people wrong has a little juicy feel to it sometimes, right? And if I've produced results, if I've gotten some success from that, well, it reinforces it, it validates it. Now, I can try and dissolve forever the notion that I'm right. I found that to be difficult. What I've kind of moved to is maybe a little softer idea that I am right, but only from where I'm looking at what I see. And the same is true for everyone, right? So whenever there is discord, when there is stress, whenever there's a problem, you have two humans, each looking at circumstance, right? Objective reality, and they're looking at some percentage of it that they can both agree on because it's objective. But what they don't realize is a lot of it is projected. And that's what we argue about. So here I am looking from one angle, producing evidence and words and logic about what I'm seeing is right. And here's the other person on the other side doing the exact same thing. So the interesting part is we're not even talking about the same reality. We're talking about our own created, projected version of that reality. And there's no better place to play with this, and I don't go down this road, but in politics, right? You literally have two different movies on the same screen, apparently. And you say, how could this be possible? The facts are the facts. Well, they are from where you're looking. Somebody else sees something entirely different. And to me, that's the starting point. It might not solve anything, but if I can begin with the idea that whatever you see from where you're looking is real, if I can just start with that, to me that opens a crack, right? That helps me back up from the righteousness and the right and you need to be wrong, right? Because what's the traditional way to get what you want? Help the other person see the error of their ways. Yeah, that would be great, except from where they're looking, they ain't in error. And they have, like you, this incredible, device in their head, which will produce infinite thoughts about why their position is correct. There is no capacity for you to overwhelm their thinking if you're talking about something, if you're arguing about something. So what do you do? Well, again, to me, the first part is to start with they see something from where they're looking that is creating how they're behaving. I don't know if this message is relevant, but I went to a little small group gathering last night, And we got to the talk, and the table was talking about um, wealth inequality and the unfairness and the lack of empathy that must occur for all these bajillionaires to hoard their money. That was sort of the topic, right? So the idea was these people are greedy and selfish, or these people are mean, or they're whatever. It was like bad rich people. And I have the fortune to work with a lot of really, really wealthy humans, right? People with lots and lots and lots of zeros. And so I asked the table a question. I said, I'm curious, why would you think somebody with 50 or $100 million would would hoard their money? And they do hoard it. I can promise you they hoard it, just like we hoard it. Why do you think they do that? And the answers, not surprisingly, were, well, they lack empathy, they don't care, they're greedy. I said, yeah. Why do you hoard money when you do? Why do you conserve it? And their answer was, well, in case I need it and there'll be a time when without it I won't be okay. I said, wonderful. What if they're the same? And everybody lost their mind. Like they have so much money, they can't think that. I said, well, yeah, I assure you they do. I assure you they do. They actually think about it the same way that you do, which is I could run out. Now, that sounds crazy to you from where you're looking. Doesn't sound crazy from where they're looking. So, do you think you're going to get, I don't know, multimillionaires or billionaires to give more money by trying to make them feel bad? It's not going to work that way because the fundamental problem is not that they don't care about people, it's that they're afraid, just like you are. They don't think they're going to be okay. They're worried they're going to run out. They literally have stories about they're going to be homeless, just like you do. But yet you're projecting onto them your ideas of what you would do if you had money and you don't know what that is and what it would mean if you didn't. And you're projecting that onto the situation. That's not true. You're literally not even looking at the same reality. So you can't move somebody off that position. All you can do is argue with them. All you can do is judge them. All you can do is make them wrong. So for me, it all begins with this truth, which sometimes is really challenging to step into, but I hold it as a truth. And when I say a truth, it's something that is true for me regardless of what I see. So then I use the truth to challenge even what I'm creating. And the truth is everybody is right from where they're looking. Whatever somebody is doing is the right thing, the perfect thing, the thing they must do from what they see. And that's the beginning for me.
Hmm. So profound what you're talking about here, Townsend. Just this idea of the willingness to seek to understand someone else
Yeah.
and what their reality is in the moment. And the word that's popping in my head is curious, right? To
Yes.
be willing to be curious instead
Mhm.
of
Yep.
judging. And I would love for us to wrap up with this story that you shared with me that happened to you over the holidays last year with your wife that
Mm.
caused you to reevaluate some judging you were doing, erect or come in touch with the fact that you were judging and what that did for you as you examined that.
This was about the tacos, wasn't it?
No, this was about her having bad days.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Yes. Oh, so my wife and I have an incredible relationship. We both speak and think and just exist in the world at a very high level of consciousness. And that doesn't mean we're enlightened and everything is always peaceful, right? Like we're both human. The one area of our relationship which over time consistently has created tension is in we'll say the building of her business, her building her business, right? So I've been at this a long time. I have a very successful business. 6 years ago, give or take, she exited the corporate world. She said, I want to be a coach. And I said, great, do it. I got you covered. No time limit, no runway, like whatever you need to do. Like I do well. I'm blessed. I'm really, really grateful for what I have. So, have fun, give your gift to the world. And over the past few years, I've watched her commit herself fully, incredibly passionate, incredibly dedicated, work really hard. Building a business is hard. And where there was tension and where there was friction in our relationship, what I got to see over time were in all the places when I would see her experiencing kind of a down mood state, a low mood state, specifically related to her business. I'm not where I should be. I need to make more money. It's not working, right? Frustration, which anybody that's built a business will tell you exists. I'll tell you it exists even for me. But what would happen was she would enter into or begin to enter into low mood state. And rather than, hey, how can I support you? Let me give you a hug. It's going to be okay. I found myself immediately in judgment of her, judging her, making her wrong. And as soon as I start with she's doing something wrong, the brain starts filling in the why. How can she be complaining? She doesn't have to worry. When I started my business, I had to, I get on the soapbox of all that I went through, and right, and it becomes this comparison thing. So I wasn't relating to objective reality. Oh, my wife is a little bummed out because she had a tough week. I was projecting onto it all my stories about how she should handle, how she could handle. Well, when I slowed all that down, right? And I know we talked about this before. One of my principles is any way that I am judging somebody else is actually a projected judgment of myself. It's some way that I judge myself, something I create that's true for me. So one of the fun things about consciousness is it's really easy to see. You just have to look at what you're putting on everybody else and imagine you're a movie theater, right? If I take you to a movie and I say, hey, what's up in the projector booth? You just go, Mickey Mouse. Yeah, because it's on the screen. Consciousness is the same way. So what I saw when I slowed it down were all my thoughts about judging her as she shouldn't be having a bad day. She shouldn't be complaining. She should be appreciating this. And I asked the question, well, if that's unacceptable that she is doing that, where does that non-acceptance live in me? What is my relationship to having a down day, feeling frustrated? Well, and what I saw almost instantly was my rule, my consciousness statement, if you will. I'm not allowed to have a bad day. I'm not allowed to have a down day, right? Like just like it's up to me, one of the truths that has created my life and allowed me to build a business, allowed me to grow it while I had a family was I'm not allowed to stumble. I'm not allowed to have a bad day. So for most of my life, if a bad day was coming, I had tools and techniques to push through it. We don't have those around here. So my perspective, we don't have down days. Townsend's not allowed to, was projecting onto her life and making it wrong and bad and causing trouble.
Mm.
As soon as I said, well, how about this? I don't have any bad days, but I'm allowed to if I want to. Right? I just looked from a different place at my own life and instantly, like literally, it's instant. Instantly, all the thoughts of judgment went away.
Mm.
Right? Because if I'm allowed to have a down day, if I'm allowed to complain, well, of course she is too. Right? And in that moment, it went from judging her to loving her. Hey, give me a hug. It'll be okay. You got this. What can I do? Or have a down day. I'll be here. I'll love you no matter what. You don't have to get out of the down day. Just, you want to go sit there and I'll get some Ben and Jerry's and gummy bears and we'll just have a down day together. Right? It became just, okay, what do I want to do with this? Not it's wrong. And that's working at the level of consciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Townsend, that story, I just love that we're wrapping up with that because all the things you've shared here to me are an invitation to my listeners to examine where are your judgments popping up, where you are projecting onto others things that you've judged yourself for, and be willing, like Townsend did, to slow down and take a look at that. It requires amazing honesty,
Mhm.
self-honesty to be willing to take a look at that. I'm not perfect. What's happening here in terms of my feelings towards this person, they're originating with me. This all goes back to, what we've been talking about, this it's inside us first
Yeah.
and looking out at the world. We could talk for another hour, I know. This has been so powerful. And I want to thank you, Townsend, for joining me again, because what you brought up today I think is so important for each of us to consider.
Yeah.
Where might we invite ourselves to
Yeah.
take a look a little differently and ask a different question? I love that question. What if it were easy and fun?
Yeah. What if you're
What
using
if
fun?
it were easy and fun? And we could apply that to any area of our lives where we're struggling right
Yep.
now
Yep.
and see things differently. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're just such a gift to the world. You're a gift to me and my audience today. And I just treasure who you are and
Mm.
what you are, who you're being and what you're doing.
Thank you,
You're,
Meredith.
it's wonderful. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thanks for tuning into my podcast. Now head over to growstrongleaders.com and check out the powerful tools we've created to help leaders strengthen their character and communication skills. Until next time, I'm Meredith Bell.